You ever see someone standing on your dock, clipboard in hand, like they're about to audit your entire life? That was my Tuesday morning, before coffee even had a chance to do its job. There she was, the HOA president herself, heels clicking louder than sense, barking that I had 48 hours to tear down my dock. Didn't matter to her that I owned every inch of that lake. Every ripple she was glaring at like it owed her money. Let me take you back a second. Picture this. 7 in the morning, mist curling off the water, the wood under my feet solid as a handshake. This dock was the last thing my wife and I planned together before cancer took her. Built it with my own hands. Out here where the air smells like pine and the world's quiet enough for old ghosts to linger. Then, click, 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 here comes Brenda Thornfield, HOA queen, clutching violation notices like she's passing out lottery tickets. She snaps, eyesore. 48 hours or we take your house. And I just stood there. Coffee went bitter in my mouth. Air got cold. Now, you might be wondering what kind of fool lets someone waltz onto their property and try to steal their wife's last dream. Truth? Grief will do that. Makes you soft. Makes you quiet. But sometimes it just gives you enough stubborn to see what happens when you push back. So I told her, as politely as I could muster, you might want to check those property lines again. What Brenda didn't know, I didn't just own the dock. I owned the entire lake system. You want to hear how a half-broken widower ends up with more water rights than SeaWorld? I'm Garrett, and 2 years back, I bought this place thinking it'd be quiet. Just me, a house, some lake, a pile of blueprints my wife scribbled between chemo sessions. I promised her I'd build the dock, even if she wasn't there to see it finished. Moved out to Millbrook Lake Estates, a real community, they called it. Doctors, retirees, everyone smiling and waving like extras in a commercial. Felt safe for about 5 minutes. I spent 6 months building that dock. Permits, engineering reports, everything by the book. The inspector called it art disguised as infrastructure. If you saw it at sunrise, you'd think it grew right out of the shore. But that's not what Brenda wanted. Brenda, imagine if a real estate ad learned to walk and got a taste for power. Blonde, polished, always improving the neighborhood. Married to Rick, king of overcharging for bad construction. She wormed her way into the HOA presidency so fast, the old-timers quit in protest. Her first order of business? Standardize every dock. You want to swim, fish, dangle your feet? Only if you buy a dock from her husband's company at triple the price. Mine was industrial, she said, handcrafted cedar, but apparently not harmonious. That's when the notices started. $500 a day if I didn't demolish it. She threatened to lien, cited emergency community protection powers, like she was auditioning for a cop show. So there I am, standing on what's left of my piece, holding papers that smell like perfume and diesel. I told her, again, to check her authority. That night, I sat on my dock listening to loons call across the lake, try to remember what my wife would say. She always did like the underdog. When bullies pick on engineers, she used to joke, they end up regretting it. That's how I found myself at the county records office, talking to Dolores, the clerk who knows more about property law than most lawyers. She squinted at my deed, then started grinning. Riparian rights, she said, like she was revealing buried treasure. Turns out my property didn't just run to the water's edge. It ran right under the lake, thanks to my great-uncle Theodore, who'd built the dam back in 1923 and finagled perpetual water management rights. The county had been paying a trust fund for maintenance for decades. Money I never even knew existed. Brenda had no idea. Her fancy lawyer brother-in-law strutted into the HOA meeting with his $1,000 suit and his PowerPoint comparing my dock to piles of rusty scrap. But I stood up, handed out copies of century-old agreements, and watched as the color drained from every face in the room. Margaret Morgan, a retired real estate attorney who'd been mostly ignored until then, spoke up, confirming it all. Riparian rights predate HOA covenants, she said. You can't regulate what you don't own. You could feel the shift. The crowd, The board, they started looking at Brenda like maybe she'd been selling them snake oil. Brenda sputtered, called me selfish, threatened to hire real attorneys. But the damage was done. That night, Margaret found me in the parking lot, legal pads in hand, eyes twinkling. I think the HOA's been operating outside the law for years, she said. Let's find out how deep this goes. Brenda, though, she wasn't done. She called another meeting, printed flyers warning of legal manipulation and property value destruction. The whole town showed up, packed into folding chairs, sweating over bad coffee. She accused me of fraud, of fabricating documents. Her lawyer claimed the HOA had absolute authority, but never actually looked up the law. That's when I realized they were counting on everyone being too intimidated to check. But engineers, we check everything. I spent the next week digging with Dolores and Margaret. What we found, Theodore hadn't just built a lake. He'd solved the county's flood problem, secured perpetual management authority, and left a paper trail a mile wide. The county had been paying maintenance fees into a trust, untouched for decades. There was almost $850,000 sitting there. Meanwhile, Rick accidentally crashed his boat into my dock, claimed mechanical failure. Insurance, cops, the works. I replaced the planks, filed my own reports, and installed cameras. The footage caught Rick and his crew trying to sabotage my dock again, clear as day. My buddy Detective Collins started building a case. By Friday, Rick was in cuffs, charged with criminal mischief, insurance fraud, and destruction of protected property. He didn't look nearly so smug and orange. Brenda kept pushing. She called in state inspectors, filed emergency petitions, tried to have the county seize the dam under eminent domain. Every agency that showed up walked away impressed with Theodore's engineering. Even the EPA wanted to use our system as a teaching example. Brenda's web got so tangled, she ended up accused of filing false reports, facing penalties herself. The final showdown was the town hall meeting. Standing room only, TV cameras, reporters, the whole circus. Brenda showed up with her lawyer, clutching statements accusing me of running a conspiracy. She dragged my wife's death into it, trying to paint me as a grief-driven fraudster. That's when even her supporters started backing away. The county attorney presented the facts. My rights were real, verified, and the HOA had been collecting illegal fees for years. The EPA inspector spoke next, praising our stewardship. Dr. Morgan, the environmental engineer, broke down how Theodore's flood system had saved $47 million in property damage over 9 decades. When it was my turn, I just told the truth. I wanted to honor my wife. That's it. I didn't want power. I didn't want to fight. But I wasn't about to let bullies erase her memory. Applause broke out. Brenda looked like someone had pulled the rug out from under her world. 6 months later, Rick was serving prison time. Brenda had sold her house in disgrace, and Margaret became the new HOA president. We used the trust fund, plus federal grants, to rebuild the watershed, upgrade the flood system, and open a memorial learning center on the dock. Sarah's dock. Now, kids learn about water and wildlife where my wife once dreamed of watching sunrises. College scholarships bear Theodore's name, training the next generation of engineers. Property values climbed, but more important, neighbors learned the real meaning of community. Respect, cooperation, standing up to bullies. And me? I still sit on that dock every morning, coffee in hand, thinking about how a quiet promise turned into something bigger than grief. The lake holds more than water. It holds memory, justice, and proof that even the smallest person can topple the loudest tyrant, so long as you've got patience and the facts on your side. So let me ask you, have you ever stood up to someone who tried to steal what mattered most? Ever watch karma unfold right in your backyard? Drop your stories below. Maybe together, we can build a handbook for surviving the next Brenda that shows up with a clipboard and a little too much attitude. And if you've been through your own HOA nightmare, you're not alone. Turns out, Even the biggest bully is no match for a community that remembers what's worth fighting for.